Lane Kiffin needs to get Sam Leavitt.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thank you all so much, especially my everydayers, for helping make that the case. Quarterback madness. No, not Rocco Becht going to Penn State, though I have some thoughts there. Where is Kenny Minchie going? We don't seem to know, because it might not be Nebraska, whose former quarterback will also come up on today's show. But let's start with Sam Leavitt, who, according to 24/7 Sports, is the best available quarterback in the portal. I agree, by the way. I think there are other serviceable, capable, promising options out there, like Dylan Raiola. DJ Lagway's got a lot of upside, but needs a lot of coaching. But if you are trying to go win a national championship, which is indeed going to be and should be the expectation for Lane Kiffin in his first year, since the team he bolted on for a better opportunity is in the national semifinal, every year you don't get there is a failure. Well, you need to go find a guy that's proven he can take a team to that point. And Sam Leavitt was one play away, not even on his side of the ball, from doing just that a season ago with Arizona State. I'm a big Sam Leavitt fan. Kenny Dillingham's a big Sam Leavitt fan. I think he's slightly overrated. If you look at the transfer rankings that have him as a 5-star, I think that's overselling it a bit, but I like him. He wasn't my number one quarterback to move in the portal, but LSU was reportedly in on Brendan Sorsby, lost out to Texas Tech. Josh Hoover, who I would have had as my number one quarterback in the transfer portal this cycle, he's going to Indiana. Which goes back to what I've talked about before. Man, the Big 12 has been good at quarterback the last couple of seasons. Anyway, what are the options for LSU if they don't wind up with Sam Leavitt? And I've seen some reports out there that he's been tied to Kentucky. Well, now Kentucky looks to be going in a different direction. They're crazy to put that sentence out there. Kentucky and LSU. Anyway, Sam Leavitt is someone that LSU has to go out and get. Because here are the other quarterbacks that are still available. Unless you're going to flip one of these guys, which is apparently a thing that happens now. DJ Lagway needs a lot of work. I don't think that's what Lane Kiffin is looking for. Dylan Raiola would probably be, in my view, the next best option. Because a guy like Deuce Knight at Auburn, I don't think, again, a project, somebody who's really unproven, is going to be the answer. Aiden Childs is super talented. Bo Pribula is, I would assume, going to wind up at Virginia Tech, but Ethan Grunkmeyer went there from Penn State, so maybe not. Maybe Bo Pribula is a guy that they would go out and get. But this quarterback carousel, which I knew was going to be crazy, is somehow even wilder than I thought it would be. It's happened so fast, which is a good time to bring up another point, which I have raised before, but worth repeating. Tampering is not a word that I have cared about or ever will care about. These sorts of moves, investing millions of dollars. Brendan Sorsby got a reported $5 million big ones from Texas Tech to go be their quarterback for his last season of college football. Those sorts of moves don't happen in a couple of days. It takes a lot longer than that. The word tampering is a nothing word, and this cycle is just further proof of that, because all of these are falling into place almost faster than I can keep up with them. It's my job to keep up with them. And I've got plenty of notes about who goes where, and I track about, as best I can, where everybody's going, when do I want to talk about this guy, and all that sort of stuff. This is as hard as it's ever been. The names are falling. It's one after the other, over and over. And Trinidad Chambliss would be a home run edition if you're Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. But you got two problems there. Number one, there was a report that he would come back to Ole Miss if, and only if, of course, his waiver gets approved from the NCAA. But the expectation at this point in time is that waiver isn't going to be approved. And I have certainly felt over the years across several sports, not just college football, there has been a randomness, which is really frustrating, to the eligibility approval that comes from the NCAA for certain players. I don't quite understand, and I know courts and judges can get involved with these sorts of cases as well, like with Diego Pavia and Trinidad Chambliss, I believe is going that route. It might be, or he's just going straight to the NCAA. I don't know. But if Chambliss isn't going to be available, and he's already said, well, if I can come back, I'm going to Ole Miss. Well, suddenly, there is no other home run option. Dylan Raiola would be the best option. And if you were LSU, if you're Lane Kiffin, with how many great quarterbacks have gone around in this cycle, would you be satisfied with anybody other than Sam Leavitt at this point? With the number of big names, impact dudes that have changed teams, would you be satisfied with anybody else? Because you're all in. It's got to be right now. Lane Kiffin, the portal king. Just as I've talked about before, about the pressure on Lane Kiffin being ratcheted up, everything's under a microscope. I'm going to put him under that microscope because he deserves it. He's the one that said, nah, to hell with Ole Miss. I've got a better chance to win at LSU. When do you think he'll get LSU? Especially if they somehow don't land Sam Leavitt, which I think they will, just to be clear. But I'm speaking in the hypothetical world in which it's not that far outside of the realm of reality. If they don't wind up getting him, how long before he reaches the national semifinal, where the team that he assembled and coached is currently playing, or is scheduled to play rather, on Thursday against Miami? How long? Because what we've seen from Lane Kiffin's teams over the years, you've got to have well above average quarterback play. He's not going to build you a run game like Brent Key would at Georgia Tech. He's not going to build you elite trench play the way that Mario Cristobal has at Miami. He's not going to make it work with under the, well, okay. Those words almost left my mouth. That thought was almost completed, and I pulled them back in because Trinidad Chambliss is one of the best stories in college football in the last 20 years, as far as I'm concerned. But he's got to have high-level quarterback play, and yeah, any guy could seemingly succeed in Lane Kiffin's offense. But you're not trying to play to a standard of success. You're trying to play to a standard of excellence. Hey, maybe Austin Simmons wants to hang around. He's in the portal leaving Ole Miss, got a relationship there. But if it's a battle in spring camp between Austin Simmons and Michael Van Buren at LSU, that's not what Lane Kiffin promised LSU. That's not what LSU fans tigered for. Or tigered. Look at me making up words. That's not what they bargained for when all of this went down. So LSU's got to go get Sam Leavitt. I suspect they will, but what if they don't? What if they don't? And then it all has to work. Boy, Lane Kiffin's going to be under a big microscope on this show in the next 365 days, which I'm here for. I'm very much here for it. I love the chaos. So let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, however you want to get in touch. Did you think that was all the quarterback chatter coming on today's show? Absolutely, positively not. First, this episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Let's be real, managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track down every transaction or hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. You can set budgets and set goals, get personalized insights, receive real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, and low balances. And you'll love how it tracks your subscriptions and lets you cancel them right in the app with just a few taps. No more hunting down customer service numbers. We all know that's a pain in the rear. Rocket Money is here to help you move past that. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All caps, all one word. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Nebraska's got their guy. Kenny Minchie will be the next quarterback of the Cornhuskers. Psych! Look, we've seen plenty of madness in college football recruiting over the last many years. Flips have not been uncommon. I don't know that I've seen this one before. Will Stein is going to be the new head coach at Kentucky and might very well be on the precipice of making a splash. Because the backup at Notre Dame, Kenny Minchie, went into the portal. Why? Because he's not going to start over CJ Carr next year. Because CJ Carr, as we all know, is very good. So he goes into the portal. And by the way, I think we can all agree that Kenny Minchie is the type of guy who the portal was kind of made for. It's not that he isn't good. Look at Steve Angeli. He went to Syracuse, was doing great, and unfortunately he got hurt. But he too was Notre Dame's backup. They had other good guys in the room, and he found an opportunity to play. And it was helping Syracuse, and then unfortunately the year went off the rails for Fran Brown. I think they'll bounce back as long as Angeli or whoever's playing quarterback can come back and stay healthy. But Kenny Minchie announces he's going to Nebraska. I jotted down in my notes, well, make sure you talk about that this week, because Dylan Raiola isn't there anymore. He was going to be the savior of Nebraska football. Remember when Dylan Raiola was quarterback for Nebraska and they were 6-2 and they were beating USC in the third quarter at home in their blackout game? Yeah, it's all gone downhill since then, beginning with the Dylan Raiola injury. So, which is something I didn't mention about Sam Leavitt, by the way. I think that's part of the reason he's been one of the last guys to find him a home. I think folks are doing their homework on the medical situation there. But Kenny Minchie was going to Nebraska, and then all of a sudden reports came out late on Monday night. He might flip to Kentucky. Well, that'd be quite a splash move for Will Stein trying to make a big entrance into the SEC as a head coach in 2026, as he is preparing, of course, for the college football playoffs at the Peach Bowl in the national semifinal on Friday night. Yeah, none of this makes any sense. Now, why are a couple of programs in the two best conferences in the country seeking his services? Tyler Wojak of Locked On Irish tells us why.
Former Notre Dame quarterback Kenny Minchie is one of the most underrated names in the transfer portal. Minchie is a talented dual-threat quarterback who narrowly lost a quarterback battle to CJ Carr, and Carr went on to prove that he was as good as any quarterback in the country this past season. What stood out to me, just as much as the talent, was how Minchie handled that entire situation. No noise, no drama. He stayed ready, stayed supportive of CJ Carr and the rest of his teammates, and he showed he is the kind of teammate that every locker room needs. And when Minchie did get his opportunity in relief of Carr, he delivered every single time. He completed 77% of his passes for 196 yards, and he added value with his legs, averaging 12 yards per carry, and had a rushing touchdown as well. Now, with his future likely headed toward the Kentucky Wildcats after receiving strong consideration from the Nebraska Cornhuskers, whoever lands Minchie is getting a very capable quarterback who can win games, elevate an offense, and lead a locker room. This is a player that people are sleeping on, but they shouldn't be.
Well, we're not sleeping on him anymore because now Tyler has told you all of the things that you need to know. Where does he wind up? I guess we'll find out as the week goes on. Will Stein's trying to get ready for Bryant Haynes' defense, the best probably in all of college football, and also figure out who his starting quarterback will be. Oregon's backup Austin Novosad's in the portal. Will Stein recruited him, has had him in his offense for the last 3 seasons. Is that a fallback option at this point? I mean, certainly you wouldn't go get a guy like Kenny Minchie if you felt like Novosad was already going to be the starter. Because remember, Cutter Boley, who's super promising at Kentucky, is going to Arizona State. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Penn State won't have to wait and see on who their quarterback will be because it'll be Rocco Becht. And this was among the most predictable quarterback transfers in the country. This is in there with the lack of surprise as Byron Brown's inevitable transfer to the Auburn Tigers will be from South Florida. Rocco Becht, a 3-year starter at Iowa State, durable, solid, capable, knows Matt Campbell, knows what the expectation is, knows how to play, and the type of offense that Matt Campbell wants to run, there's no serious downside here if you're a Penn State fan, because Rocco Becht is a guy that has won at a school far more difficult to win at than the one he is now playing for. So in theory, though Penn State has had some pretty notable transfer departures. Their linebacker, Amari Campbell, they've had a former 5-star tight end go in the portal. Their transfer edge rusher, trying to think of his name, I'm going to go to it here because I know he's going to be a big-time player somewhere. But Chaz Coleman is one of the highest-rated players available in the transfer portal at defensive end / edge, 6'4", 246 pounds, grades as a 5-star transfer on 24/7. They've lost a fair amount of guys. They're bringing in their Iowa State crew, and I don't think that year one with Rocco Becht or any of those Iowa State guys is going to be the best version of Penn State under Matt Campbell. I really don't. I don't think you have an Indiana situation here. I think Penn State will be a solid team. Rocco Becht gives you a really high floor because he's proven to be a winning quarterback that makes winning plays. He's not a guy who is at his best when he has to drop back and just go win the game for you himself. He's going to make that winning play. He's going to manage the game really well. He's not going to, do what Trinidad Chambliss did against Georgia in the quarterfinal game. He's not that type of guy, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. This is not me saying Rocco Becht is terrible. I like Rocco Becht. I think easily one of the top 7 or 8 quarterbacks that have hit the transfer portal this cycle. Very high floor, not the highest ceiling. Compare that to a guy like DJ Lagway, who has a much higher ceiling, but a much lower floor. And I think with what Penn State just went through as a program, Matt Campbell coming in, yeah, he's on an 8-year contract, so no matter how year one goes, he's going to be coming back for years 2 and 3 and probably 4 and maybe even 5. Regardless, obviously disasters can strike, but I think that Rocco Becht gives you the ability to come in and buy equity with the donors, with the administration, with the fan base, and in the locker room, frankly, as well. Because you can come in, start Rocco Becht quarterback, and he's going to do well. He's going to do well. I don't think he's, automatically a top 3 quarterback in the Big Ten or anything like that. I mean, I'd rather have Josh Hoover, who's going to Indiana. If Dante Moore comes back to Oregon, I'd rather have him. I'd rather have Julian Sayin at Ohio State. But is he at the bottom? No. I think he's close to middle top-ish of the conference. Like, I'd probably rather have Damon Williams over at Washington than Rocco Becht. I think this is more just a testament to the caliber of a quarterback conference that the Big Ten is putting together for 2026. I mean, it feels kind of Big 12-ish. And by the way, they've got one of the former Big 12 guys in there in Josh Hoover going to Indiana, which, as I talked about on yesterday's show, is a really, really good fit. So, there are certainly some other pieces to fill in around Rocco Becht if you're going to have, a 9-10 win season. You look at the roster they had last year, for instance, when they went to the Big 12 championship game, lost to Arizona State. He had 2 NFL wide receivers out there and 1.5 NFL caliber running backs as well. So I think that what Matt Campbell will do at Penn State is something the Nittany Lion fans will like. I think Rocco Becht will be serviceable. He's your classic bridge quarterback. He's going to go out there and probably win you somewhere between 7 and 9 games in year one. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Rome or a great college football program, not built in a day. Gosh, I still have more quarterback chatter, plus a couple other players to note. Drew Mestemaker officially committed to Oklahoma State, as did North Texas's star running back, Caleb Hawkins, as did Wyatt Young, their 1,000-yard receiver. So that trio is making their way to Stillwater. This is great news if you're an Oklahoma State fan. You got a new head coach. He's bringing his guys with him. They believe in him. They believe in the potential. You've got enough money to give to those players because Drew Mestemaker, make no mistake about it, would have gotten, and I believe did, bigger offers at schools that have a stronger brand and maybe even more money in some instances than Oklahoma State. But the donor base in Stillwater, they ponied up, cowboyed up, you could say, and made a competitive offer, and Mestemaker now goes and plays in the same system. Now, that's the good news. That's the good news if you are Oklahoma State. is you're going to have a capable quarterback. You'll have the opportunity to keep him for 2 years. We'll see if that is going to be feasible. You got a running back who is dynamic and explosive. You got a receiver who's got great chemistry with your quarterback. That is a good foundation for a team that just went 1-11 with their only win being over UT Martin in 2025. Here is the unfortunate side of that equation. There is a lot to build. There is a lot to build in Stillwater. I think this is at least a 2-year project with how poorly it went. Now, there are 18 incoming transfers for Oklahoma State, and the portal is still open for a good while. Almost all of these guys have been carryovers from North Texas. Not all of them, but a lot of them have been. Just from a volume standpoint, Oklahoma State's going to need a little more. If I told you up front that the outgoing number of transfers for Oklahoma State is crazy, and it's a huge number, and that 18 doesn't, it makes a dent in what they're going to be able to do from a roster standpoint, but there's still more work to be done. How many players do you think have left the Oklahoma State program? Just rattle off a guess. I'll give you 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you guessed 61, then you're correct. 61. That's the number. Been following this for the last couple days, and as I recorded this show on Monday night, 61. Woo! Boy, I tell you, I have never seen anything like that. That is a number, and I don't know where those guys are ending up. A couple of them have found homes. Most of them have not. Wendell Gregory, no surprise, expected to go to Texas Tech. He's probably the highest profile departing player for Oklahoma State. Former 4-star recruit and was probably the best defensive player this year at the edge position. And Texas Tech in the portal, yeah, that's a pretty good match. But, man, there is a lot of work for Eric Morris. So it's exciting. It's incredibly notable. And it is a statement, frankly, that Oklahoma State pulled all 3 of those guys. They could have gone elsewhere. They could have gone elsewhere, but they feel like there is enough moving in a positive direction in Stillwater to where they want to go and build something there and continue on with their head coach. They didn't have to. They did not have to, but they are choosing to. So, good for Oklahoma State. Good for the Cowboys. But there's some work to be done. 61 is a crazy number. Here's another crazy thing. Jackson Arnold is expected to wind up at UNLV. Now, I think this could be a great fit. Do not get me wrong. I am indeed disappointed. I am very disappointed. Many of you know the name Jackson Arnold, former 5-star recruit, went to Oklahoma, redshirted, played in the bowl game, flashed big potential, got benched in his first year starting. Hugh Freeze said, "Ooh, I'll take him in a year where I have to win." Of all the sharp takes I've ever had, that one is up there from the 2025 season. Jackson Arnold to Auburn was not the right addition, and he wound up getting benched at one point in time. So if he goes to UNLV, where Dan Mullen is a head coach and just had a phenomenal first year, UNLV was once again playing in the Mountain West Championship game, and they can't beat Boise State in the big one. Barry Odom couldn't do it. Dan Mullen couldn't do it this year. Maybe Jackson Arnold will get his shot. I think this is a really smart move. Swallow your pride, ignore your recruiting ranking, and go to the place that gives you an opportunity to play football and have success. Because clearly, the SEC is not for you. Sure, the high school talent profile of Jackson Arnold is one of a quarterback who should play at a school bigger and more prestigious than UNLV. But playing quarterback is not just about being big, having a good arm, or being able to run. It's just not. And Arnold is a great example of that. A great reminder, I should say. There have been several over the years, but Arnold is one. So if he were to go to UNLV, which appears to be all but done, hasn't officially happened yet as I'm recording this, maybe that's changed as you're listening to or watching this show, which I appreciate you all doing, by the way. I'm glad you enjoy. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. If he goes to UNLV, it's a great place to be. That game is going to feel so much slower compared to what he just saw in the SEC. And I am 100% in the camp of, hey, let's be honest about what the SEC is, because it's nowhere near where it used to be. I'm not so dense that I don't realize there's a gap between the Mountain West and the SEC. So easier to throw the ball, a quarterback-friendly offense that just produced the Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year. Anthony Colandrea came over from Virginia, where he'd struggled a little. He was okay. He was solid. And Dan Mullen made him the Conference Player of the Year. You know how? Used his legs and his arm. And I think going to a veteran coach like Dan Mullen, into a good situation at UNLV, that is a program that looks like they're just going to continue to roll along and be a contender in the Mountain West, I'm here for it. I think it's an excellent decision. I think there are a lot of similarities between Colandrea's game and Arnold's game. They are both excellent runners. They both run better than they throw, and they just need to be decently or moderately efficient. I mean, Colandrea this year was exceptional, of course, and he completed 66% of his passes. At Virginia, he never completed more than 62.5%. So I think Dan Mullen's proof of concept is a good one. I also think Jackson Arnold to a place like Louisville would have been not a perfect fit, but interesting. I stand by that Georgia Tech would have used his skill set really well. But Colandrea threw for almost 3,500 yards, and he ran for 650 and 10 touchdowns. Wouldn't shock me in the slightest if Jackson Arnold puts up that type of season in 2026. So I'm fascinated to see how it all plays out. UNLV can be a player for the Group of 5 playoff bid. We don't know what that bid actually looks like yet because, well, we don't know what the playoff format is, but we'll know later this month, or at least we think. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.